Hi, I'm Reed Silverne. The name of this show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal employee and proud of it. Again, I have Google Earth up today, and even though the Lebanon war is over, I have had to check something. Even though the Lebanon war is over, I still got the Google Earth, and you notice that I'm working very hard on doing the weatherman thing and being able to point to something. But instead of pointing, I have a mouse over here, and I'll be able to point to things with the mouse. So I'm going to move over here a little bit. Basically, today is Friday, the 18th of August. You're probably going to see this on Sunday, the 20th, or maybe the week after, maybe the week after that. In which case, just about everything I do or say is going to be old news, and that's very, very common for this show. I'm sure that both my loyal listeners and viewers understand that, and whatever I talk about is going to be old news. So I'm going to try to talk about this in a wider context. Basically, in the last couple of weeks, the war between Hezbollah and, let's see if I can actually get to this. Unfortunately, this is going to be, I'm going to cover it up. Let's see if I can get to it. A little bit of a logistic problem over here. That is soluble. So let's see if I can control this. There we go. Right about here, Israel attacked finally in the last week of the war, and finally made it up to the Litani River. The Litani River comes from about here and then turns north over there. Just as Israel was taking territory, all of a sudden the Lebanese government decided to deploy 15,000 troops over along the border. Meanwhile, there was a UN resolution. It took about 30 days for the UN to finally act and call for a ceasefire. And the ceasefire called for offensive Israeli actions to stop, and for the Lebanese government to deploy 15,000 troops, and for the UN to expand their present UN force, which is over here and has been notably completely worthless, even sitting and helping, not helping, but at least knowing about and not stopping the Hezbollah fighters from attacking across the border. How did this whole thing start? I'm not going to go through all the context, but right about here there was a little Israeli post, military post. Hezbollah obviously dug under the fence, attacked this post, killed 3 Israelis, and I've also heard 8, and captured 2. Now, the capture of the 2 for the purpose of exchange of prisoners, and they wanted to exchange not so many Lebanese prisoners, there's only 1 left, but in fact Palestinian prisoners, and kind of imposed themselves into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Has that happened? It's hard to say. They did take these prisoners, and these prisoners are still in Hezbollah hands. Israel, however, Hezbollah overplayed their hand a little bit. Instead of doing their usual thing of tossing a couple shells across the border, maybe bombing a couple posts over there in southern Lebanon, which case the Hezbollahs would say, oh, they killed 1,000 babies or 100 babies or whatever. Not that children do not get hurt in war, they do. However, it appears that every casualty as a result of an Israeli attack always ends up propagandistically to be an attack on babies. Indeed, Israel, instead of just lobbing a few shells and maybe bombing a post or 2, attacked in force, isolated this whole area of Lebanon, and they just started bombing the heck out of the southern suburbs of Beirut, which are controlled by Hezbollah, and the Bekaa Valley, which is controlled by Hezbollah in part, and mostly this area south of Lebanon. Now, once the war was on, the Hezbollahs were found to have, they were always thought to have about 10,000 missiles of one kind or another. It ends up they have more like 13,000. And Hezbollah promised surprises. One of the surprises was a silkworm missile, which attacked a Israeli gunboat. And the Israelis apparently had their anti-missile fire system down. So that particular gunboat was disabled and had to be pulled away. It was in the first part of the days. And the second part, the Hezbollahs were going to attack, said they had surprises, they had longer range missiles, and indeed they attacked this town right over here, which is Haifa. And so they were able to attack all the way to the edge of the West Bank. So this whole area here in Israel was subject to attack, and most of the missiles, though, landed in Kiryat Shimona, Metula, which is right at the northern tip of Israel, Nahariya, which is right about there, and this band of area got attacked really, really bad. The Hezbollahs, over a period of 35 days, sent about 4,000 missiles across Israel. In all those missile attacks, about 20 Israelis were killed. A large group, oddly enough, in the longest range missile attack, which hit a, I'm going to just leave my pointer there, in Haifa, a building at a train station was hit almost by accident, killed 12 Israelis. Meanwhile, the Israelis realized they were going to get nowhere just by bombing things. The Lebanese soon claimed that 1,000 civilians had been killed in the Israeli bombing. This has been brought down to about 760. They claim that almost no Hezbollah fighters were killed. In fact, Israel claims that about 500 Hezbollah fighters were killed. Most of the fighters were killed in this area over here. And about the second and third weeks of the war, Israel attacked a group of towns right over here, Ras Marsul, which is right here. Right here is Bent Jabal. And there were battles along this ridge that came up over here. About 20 Israeli soldiers were killed in those attacks. Many Hezbollah fighters, but Israel ended up, I think, capturing about 30 or 40 Hezbollahs. Hard to say how many. And they themselves grabbed approximately 50 or 60 bodies that they can prove were killed. However, the Hezbollahs pretty much pulled their casualties off, so it's hard to say how many were killed. Israelis also attacked a hospital, which was not just a hospital, but also Hezbollah offices right about here. They actually came in with helicopters. And they thought that a Hezbollah leader was in there, but it wasn't. They captured 5 Hezbollahs and killed about 5 or 10 others. And that was about here. This is the Bekaa Valley. As you can see, it's very green, and it's behind a range of mountains, Shuf Mountains, which are over here, and the Israelis attacked this. The last week of the war, the Israelis just attacked with 30,000 troops, up from 5, and finally made it over here to the Litani River, and captured Marjayoun and Taibeh and a whole bunch of towns. They did not attack this little mini peninsula over here. It's called Tyre. It's the city of Tyre, as a matter of fact. Arabic is called Sur. And this is a very, very ancient city that goes back all the way to the Bible. And that's where Hiram of Tyre, who gave wood and cedar especially to Solomon to help build the Temple of Solomon. So this town is very, very famous. Throughout history, Alexander the Great spent 9 months investing and besieging this town before they took it, because it was the naval base for the entire Persian Empire, which was overthrown by Alexander the Great. 330 to 323 BC. So that's part of the history of that area. And of course, Tyre was not retaken by the Israelis, but the Israelis bypassed it in order to get to the Litani River. As the Israelis came forward in the last week of the war, last 2 weeks of the war, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, who was a guy named Fuad Siniora, he offered to send Lebanese troops down to the border. And of course, that's what failed to happen in 2000 when the Israelis pulled away to the border as set by the UN. This particular line over here is called the blue line, even though it's yellow on the Google Earth map. This is the blue line. And the Israelis withdrew all the way to the blue line, but there's one little corner of space right here between the Golan Heights, Lebanon, and Israel, which is called Shabah Farms. And this Shabah Farms area, Hezbollah claimed for Lebanon, and claimed that they were still resisting an occupation instead of an occupation of this whole part of Lebanon up here. It was an Israeli occupation of 41 kilometers that Israel would have been happy to get out of if it was really behind the blue line. In fact, it's mostly considered to be, let's see if I can find my, it's mostly considered to be Syrian territory, but if Syria cedes it to Lebanon, Israel will be happy to leave. If it'll enable the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah because they wouldn't be a resistance army anymore. Well, they're a resistance army again for a couple weeks because Israel is still along this territory over here. Hezbollah said that it wouldn't respect the ceasefire, but it has, and the Lebanese army is already deployed, and the Israeli army is already pulling back. And they're pulling back on the basis of Security Council Resolution 1701. 1701, I believe, was passed the 10th or 11th of August. According to this, it was at least posted on the web on the 11th of August. And what does it say? Everybody talks about Security Council resolutions. Nobody talks about what do they say. But I just happen to have it right here. So, calls for a cessation of hostilities between, based upon particularly immediate cessation by Hezbollah. So it does mention Hezbollah, and the immediate cessation by Israel of all offensive military operations. So it didn't force Israel out of Lebanon, even though Israel is leaving Lebanon. Just told them to stop offensive military operations, which includes bombing Beirut and doing a lot of things. Second part, upon full cessation of hostilities, government of Lebanon, UNIFIL. UNIFIL is the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, which is going, now 2,000 people that spread are in little posts around here. In fact, a couple of them were killed in the war. And it's going to increase UNIFIL from 2,000 to 15,000 troops, and calls upon the government of Israel, as that deployment begins, deployment hasn't quite begun yet, withdraw all of its forces south of the border in parallel. Emphasizes Resolution 1559. Now, Resolution 1559 is important because that's the resolution that said that all little bitty private armies in Lebanon. Lebanon had a civil war for 15 years, and there was not only Hezbollah, there were 7 or 8 different militias. They all be disarmed. In fact, they all were disarmed, but Hezbollah wouldn't disarm in 1990, between 1990 and 2000, when the civil war ended and this Taif agreement began. So it also reiterates the strong support for the full respect of the blue line by the Security Council. Blue line is this line over here, and you can see it on the map, separates Lebanon from Israel, and is the international boundary, which was set apparently the 23rd of March, 1949, at the end of the original war that began Israel, really. And reiterates its support for the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political independence of Lebanon within its internationally recognized borders as contemplated by the Israeli-Lebanese General Armistice Agreement of 23 March. And I notice that it doesn't also call for the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political independence of Israel either. Calls on the international community to take immediate steps to extend financial and humanitarian assistance to Lebanon, not to Israel, of course, facilitating the safe return of displaced persons. 800,000 people, the propaganda said it was 1 million, but it's turning out to be more like 700,000 or 800,000, were displaced. They moved away temporarily, and they're already moving back. So we have, okay, where is it? Okay, somewhere. Okay, there's a flow of people from Syria back into Lebanon, and also from Beirut, where a lot of people stayed, and Tyre, back into these villages over here. And assistance for the reconstruction of development. Now, of course, in Israel, over, they say, somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million people fled temporarily to the more settled parts of Israel from the parts that were being attacked with missiles. 4,000 missiles hit Israel. And, of course, nobody's calling on anybody to supply any humanitarian aid to Israel whatsoever. Calls for Israel and Lebanon to support a permanent ceasefire and a long-term solution based on the following principles. Now, a long-term solution might be good because when Israel pulled behind the 2000 line, they expected that, similar to Jordan and Egypt, that Lebanon might consider some kind of a peace treaty with them, recognize Israel's existence. That has not happened. Here's the principles of any agreement between Lebanon and Israel. Probably will never happen because Hezbollah is part of the government of Lebanon. Full respect for the blue line for both parties. That didn't happen because it was Hezbollah that started the war by attacking Israel and taking prisoners from there. Security arrangements to prevent the resumption of hostilities, including establishment of the between the blue line and the Litani River, which kind of goes like this, of an area free of any armed personnel, assets, or weapon other than the government of Lebanon and the United Nations troops, which will be deployed. 3, full implementations of the Taif Accords and 1559, which eventually would lead to the disarmament of Hezbollah. No foreign forces in Lebanon without the consult of the Lebanese government. Syrians have already moved out. The Israelis are moving out, so that might be possible. No sale or supply of arms and related material to Lebanon, except as authorized by its government. And that basically is a dig on Syria and Iran, which supplied 13,000 missiles over a period of 6 years, plus anti-tank weapons and who knows what else, to Lebanon, which is basically a private army of a political party. So that's probably a good thing. Provision to the United Nations of all remaining maps of landmines in Lebanon by the Israelis. It invites Kofi Annan to secure as fast as possible in principle from the government of Lebanon, which was approved the next day, and the government of Israel, which I think was approved about the 13th of August. And the ceasefire started on the 14th of August. Ceasefire is basically held with a few Hezbollah missiles for the last 5 days. Of course, it's Friday, August 18th for me, not for you who are watching. And we'll see what happens. And one kind of hit on Israel is that the number 10 of the resolution says, calls for the delineation of the international borders of Lebanon, especially in those areas where the border is disputed or uncertain, including by dealing with the Shabbat Farms area, which is this little area that's claimed by Hezbollah, and to present to the Security Council these proposals within 30 days. I'd be very interested in seeing what's happened, because they may move the blue line a little bit over a little bit. And if the Shabbat Farms is declared to be Lebanon and Israel pulls out, then internally in Lebanon, Hezbollah would be hard-pressed to justify being a resistance group, which is what they call it, resistance to occupation. Now, this isn't confusing the Palestinian problem, because if there's an occupation there, or if it's disputed territory, depending on what one side or the other says, that's still ongoing. But complete disoccupation of Lebanon, which was attempted 2000, should have taken away all Lebanese groups' opportunity, I guess you might say, to hold on to these arms and these hostilities. In fact, throughout this whole area bordering on Israel, Hezbollah has been digging these very, very deep bunkers and filling them with missiles and so on and so forth, which is why such a tough battle over here. Besides, in order to supplement and enhance the force in numbers and equipment, to authorize the increase in force of the strength of UNIFIL to a maximum of 15,000 troops, monitor the cessation of hostilities, which they never did in the past, so why should they start now? And accompany and support the Lebanese armed forces as they deploy throughout the south, including along the blue line. So UNIFIL and the Lebanese army will actually come into the blue line. And according to the newspaper today, which is the 18th, yesterday, in other words, on the 17th, some actual Lebanese army forces actually got to the blue line itself. And in parallel, Israel withdraws back to its border, and hopefully nobody's going to take any prisoners. Now, what doesn't this resolution talk about? Well, it doesn't talk about the thing that started this whole thing in the first place, which is the 2 Israeli soldiers that were taken prisoner by Hezbollah, and that Hezbollah wanted to trade for thousands and thousands of prisoners, Palestinian prisoners in Israel. That is a defeat for Israel, pure and simple. Israel wanted included in the resolution a call for the return, unconditional return of its 2 troops. So it should happen, but it didn't, and nobody really has an explanation why that wasn't put into the resolution. Now Israel has to negotiate with somebody, who knows who, to get it back. Basically, the Lebanese government and all the go-betweens are using a guy named Nabi Berri as the go-between between Hezbollah and Israel. Nabi Berri is he is the head of the Amal party. Amal means hope in Arabic, and that is the original party for the Shiite people in Lebanon. The Shiites live here, they live along the border here, they live in the southern suburbs of Beirut, and this area here is mostly Druze. This area in here is almost all Christian, and then the Shiite areas are over here, and then up here are some Sunni areas and other groups of people. And of course, Beirut has a lot of Sunni Arabs too. And I've already discussed Sunnis versus Shiites and who are they in the context of talking about Iraq, where, of course, our troops are. So what's going to happen? Well, it's hard to say what's going to happen. Israel obviously is tired of having rockets tossed at it, so they're going to keep to the ceasefire. Hezbollah is a big hero throughout the whole Arab world, blah, 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 and has a glow of resistance and heroism, and so they're not doing too bad politically. However, someday the Lebanese are going to wake up and say, what happened to Lebanon? Lebanon was coming back as a tourist mecca, and not too many tourists are going to be going to Hezbollah land during this war. So it's hard to say what's going to happen next. I also wanted to talk about suitcase bombs that were found in Germany. And let's see if I can get that up. No. And this is a map of Germany over here. But I don't have time for that. My name is Reed Silverne. Name of the show is Fed Pride. Reason it's called Fed Pride, I'm a federal employee. I'm proud of it. And thank you very, very much for watching my show. We'll see you next week.